Hi, Lisa here. Welcome to my channel, The Road to Reflection. In this recording, Forrest claims that marriage is problematic. Ha, I like it. Thomas asks Street Epistemology questions to figure out how sure Forrest is about his claim. Why does Forrest think marriage is problematic? Would Forrest ever change his mind? Do you agree or disagree? Notice how clearly Thomas asks Forrest for consent before they begin. Really well done. After the conversation, Forrest shares his thoughts about the interview and what he enjoyed about participating, so stick around for that. If you like street epistemology, like, comment, subscribe to my channel. You'll make my day. Come join our street epistemology meetings if you're ever in the Salt Lake City area. The meetings are always super fun. So thank you for your time and attention. Here we go.
All right, so my name's Thomas, and I'm in Salt Lake, Utah, just going to explore some beliefs with a wonderful person here whose name I don't know.
My name is Forrest.
Forrest, all right.
Thanks.
Forrest, it's nice to know your name. I'm working at trying to remember names, so if we see you again, I'm going to try and hold myself to it. Okay. Yes, that's a good idea right here. Yeah, okay. So, I understand you have a claim you'd like to make for us today.
Yeah. I believe that I tentatively believe, because we drew these cards and such, and I'm just sort of grabbing one, but I tentatively believe that marriage is problematic and we should not do it.
Okay. Now, I am going to ask you questions about this claim that could result in you changing your mind. So you're fine with that?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, all right. Okay, so your claim is that marriage is problematic and we shouldn't participate in it.
Right. That is my tentative claim.
Okay. It's not whether or not it's something you believe, it's a claim you're making and we're going to investigate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what's your confidence level in that? Like 0 to 100, 100 being confident.
I think that, so I'd say that I'm probably about like 65% sure that I'm in agreement with what I just said.
Okay.
That's fair.
And so, first off, why is this something that you feel could be true?
The reasons that I think that marriage can be problematic and should not be done, is one, there's a social hierarchy that is given to spouses that is not afforded to other people. I think that there is a lot of it boils down to hierarchy and the implicit hierarchy that occurs. So there's also various tax benefits that are provided to people that are married that are not provided to people that are unmarried. So there's a degree of inequity there. There's also, so besides that kind of privilege stuff, there's also issues with, how do I say, like, there's also an extent to which it creates a social hierarchy that can at times be kind of it can lead to certain kinds of assumptions, and in practice can be somewhat toxic at points.
Okay. So, I'm going to try and restate that and make sure that
Sure.
I understand it correctly. So, based on what you've seen in life, government gives special benefits to people that are married that they don't give to people that aren't.
As best I understand, yes.
Okay. And when you're married, you have there's a hierarchy that happens that can be toxic in certain situations, being that one person is put in importance above another person, if I read into that correctly.
It can result in some inequity,
Okay.
like between the two partners and their other relationships.
Okay. Inequity between the partners and relationships. Okay.
It can just,
So, are you aware of any if you were to become aware of any government provided privileges to people that aren't married, would that possibly sway your mind on this?
It's swayed to an extent. It is a two-pronged thing. I do think that there's hierarchical inequity related stuff that occurs between, marital partners and their other relationships, but also the privileges, like if the same benefits were provided to everyone, then that would definitely diminish my issues with it.
So it could lower that 60-65 down.
Right. It could be it could be a personal beef rather than something that's like a...
And so if we did come across or we did find a way to learn that there are people that are married, that this toxic relationship doesn't come about, would you still be opposed to that?
I wanna maybe make a thing a little bit clear that I think I wasn't fully transparent about. I do think that through proper therapy, counseling, and exploration of what marriage means and all that kind of stuff in a thorough manner, that you're able to eliminate a lot of the inequity and approach things in a much more kind of like egalitarian way with all the people involved. But I think that marriage as a concept and what it means to people generally leads to a certain kind of entitlement and such like that results in issues.
I skipped right over, marriage is just something that you just assume everyone knows what marriage is, but maybe you have a different understanding of what marriage is than I do. So maybe let's define what we mean by marriage.
To put in the words of a comedian, it's that you and your partner have gotten so serious about a relationship, you've decided to get the government involved.
You decided to have the government sign a piece of paper that says you're now bound.
In addition, there's also like a ceremony. There's typically, not always, but typically some sort of like ceremony and public presentation of the relationship reaching like a higher status than other relationships.
Okay.
So it's like relationships where you're married are like more serious than relationships where you're like, you met the person like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Or 2 years ago, or even 10 years ago, but you're just not married.
And does it have to be, so I'm aware of some laws where like I could live with somebody for X amount of time and we could then be considered
like common law married.
Law married. Do you think those kind of marriages are the same as one where you purposely go out and say, hey, government, get in my life?
Well, yes and no. They're very similar in that you're able to reap a lot of the same tax benefits. I'm familiar from prior occupation stuff that for instance, when you're completing a financial aid application, if your parents are common law married, they need to file their taxes as married filing jointly or married filing separate. So long as they present in any capacity as married or live together for X period of time and are presenting themselves as a unified couple, then they have to file that way.
Got it. Okay, so just to kind of sum this up, marriage, which is a legal union between two people, is problematic because of the sociological toxic results from marriage, that how we as society treat marriage, and how the government benefits married people over those that aren't married.
Yes.
But you would be willing to change your mind on this if certain conditions came about and could potentially consider it.
Yeah.
And are you willing to look for
Yeah.
the opposite end?
Yeah. Part of me coming to this view in the first place is like I do want to look at circumstances in which this could be less the case. I think with the context that things are in now, the legal things are kind of hard to kind of dispute to a degree. But if there are things that I don't know about, I'm open to changing my mind on that front. And with the, inequity and social kind of thing, like I do allow there are circumstances where that's not the case, but like by and large, I think it is the case. But if there's a way to like potentially shift that or show that that's like a good thing to have happen, then
Okay.
sure.
Cool. And would you still say you're at that 60, 65-ish percent?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you for speaking with me today, Forrest. It was good to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job. Any thoughts on that? How did it go for you, Forrest? What did you think?
It was definitely is interesting. Definitely, as I was as some of the questions were asked, it made me kind of like I had to take a bit to like reevaluate,
Right.
which I think is like really like definitely good for me.
Mm-hmm. Did it challenge your opinions, kind of?
A little
Like,
bit, yeah.
Why do I believe this? Did you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Made you
And
think.
it's a thing that regardless of what I think about it ethically or anything like that,
Right.
I'm like, it's a fact of the matter that like that's a thing people do, and I'm like, yeah, no.
It exists.
It exists, and it's like sometimes it's like, well, no, I mean, like just purely from like a utilitarian kind of perspective, it's like I'd like to give this person health insurance.
Right.
I will get married to them so they can
gotta
have
get
that.
married.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, sure.
I have a friend that said she swore she'd never get married again.
Yeah.
And 10 years later found herself getting married because her husband was retiring from his job and she couldn't have his retirement benefits.
Unless-
As a common law spouse, she had
Yeah.
to be legally married.
Yeah.
Not just through common law.
Yeah.
So she found herself getting married to someone again.
Yeah, and it's like, what do? And I know that like in certain relationship configurations and such like that, the the hierarchical thing becomes like weirdly problematic at various points. And some of that like is contingent on whether or not the partners live together. That is definitely a thing. Like if you're married and live apart, then it's like, well, a lot of the things that, are kind of like the preferential treatment and benefits become less of a thing. It depends how like entangled you are with the person.
Yeah.
But
A lot of it's cultural too.
Yeah.
I'd probably say,
oh, for sure.
because you could look at like maybe around the world, do a global study on
Sure.
marriage and come up with so many different
Or is marriage
flavors.
a religious action,
Right.
and the government should keep its nose out of it, or vice versa?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of those factors.
Yeah, I mean that's where I was. I was looking at because I've had that government's recognition of marriage as a violation of church and state. Like that's a personal opinion of mine. So listening to this was, you did such a good job, but I was like. I had to step back my own thoughts to be like,
Yeah.
Distinct opinions on the topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
and
I mean, I am, I am like definitely pretty involved in like spirituality related stuffs, but I'm pretty heavily divorced and have been divorced all my life from religion. So religion even factoring into the marriage discussion is something that like I am completely.
yeah.
It's just yeah.
Well,
it's just
when
funny
you
to
look
me. I
back
hear it. I'm
on-
like, well, it makes sense.
Yeah. And when you look back on history, like like the government, like you go back to Africa, and there's African tribes. The government was the religion. The religion was the government.
Yeah.
And where if you want to have a place where the government is not the religion and the religion is not the government, I think you do have to give a way for people to go to the government and say, I want to be joined, and at the same time I think you'd have to give the religions the ability to say, hey, we want to have a religious ceremony. Like it's a weird thing where, as we evolve through time, like why do we do so many things based on what we did in the past, and why
Like
do
the
we do them
definition
still?
of marriage
Mm-hmm.
shifts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived in Sweden and it doesn't,
Those spectrum
marriage
cards
is
are super
fashion.
cool, though.
Yeah,
Because
this is the game.
all benefits are individual. So everybody has health insurance, everybody has retirement, everybody has this and that. There's no tax benefit, so there's really
Yeah.
no reason to be married unless it's a religious or fashionable thing.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah, I
So I
think-
think you can't,
yeah.
I really like Thomas that you went back to like, what are we, we assume we may be talking about the same thing, but let's go back to see, do we really talk about the same
You
thing?
could come at it from a psychological perspective too, just like the psychology of being in a long-term relationship with somebody, and how people change and mature and grow up and grow apart, and that's, I don't know, another factor maybe that.
Well, and then if they do grow apart, the expense and toxicity of
divorce.
divorce.
And the pressure to get remarried or
Yeah.
all of that stuff. Oh,
Interesting.
this is still going. Anyway. Thanks for coming today, guys. It's been really interesting. Say goodbye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.